Good afternoon, everybody. It's Friday. Welcome. Thanks for joining. We'll give everybody a few minutes to hop on and maybe we'll do some BS in here. 4th of July, did you guys have a good holiday?
Yeah, did. Yeah, blew a lot of stuff up, man. It was a good time.
Still got all these?
Yeah, they're all here. Yeah, I did get hit in the chest with some shrapnel on one though, so that was a little scary for a minute. One just didn't quite launch the way it meant to, and then just boom. Yeah.
Oh man,
I was afraid the beard was going to go up. That was the thing I was worried about.
Yeah. Not only would you lose that glorious beard, burning hair stinks real bad.
It's real bad. Yeah. I had it all beard oiled up too, so it just went.
Oh, yeah, it would have been quick.
You'd have been gone.
Yeah, I've been done, man. Done.
Burning hair just completely reminded me of a complete tangent off of the 4th of July. But it reminded me, I had a cat once who, cats' tails, how they just do what they do. They have a mind of their own. They literally don't control them. He jumped up on this table where we had a candle burning, and his tail literally just went through it back and forth and lit on fire and was literally burning above his head behind him, waving back and forth. And he was totally fine. He never even realized it happened. We freaked out, went over there and patted it out and fixed it, but man, did it stink.
I could tell a story about when I burned my eyebrows, my arm hair, and my leg hair off. I think I'll save that though for another time. But
you can tempt everyone with that story and then just move on. Oh, man. I could tell this story that sounds like something you definitely want to hear, but then I'm not going to tell you.
I think we'll save that for we'll do the Hackle Box after dark or something where we don't really even talk about InfoSec. We just tell funny, embarrassing stories about ourselves. And
sure.
Yeah.
Have good laughs. Maybe next month for the DEF CON show.
Yeah. That's exciting. Next month we are going to be doing this live from DEF CON. So that should be fun. I bet we see some surprise guests. I'm not sure our agenda will be as clear cut, maybe as it usually is, but we're going to have some fun with that one.
Yeah, it may get out of hand, honestly. I mean, just to be fair.
All right, I think we'll go ahead.
I was just gonna say Cliff posted something to us in chat, and I just wanted to say,
I see this. So we'll share this with everybody.
Yeah. Oh,
we lost him.
The storm hit Oscar. Oh, he's back. He's moving.
Yeah, they're still rolling through the area. They're just showed up here too. I got thunder going, so it's probably getting dark behind me in a second.
There you go.
Yeah, I muted myself to wait till the lag finished. Yeah, apologies in advance, everyone. We're getting hit with some crazy storms in my area right now. Hopefully my electricity stays on. The last 3 times we've got hit with storms, my electricity's dropped. So fingers crossed today it won't happen again. Yeah, Cliff shared this with me in an email too beforehand, and did throw it in the chat as a reminder. There's a new series called the Undeclared War. I think it first aired in the UK, he said. But it was based upon 3 years experience in 3 years research in cyber warfare. And he said he got to watch a few episodes. I think he was across the pond and recommends it to everybody. So I'm excited about that. Thanks for sharing that, Cliff. And hopefully our viewers will enjoy that as well. Let's just dig right in. Welcome everybody to another session of the Hackle Box. First up is NPM. Node package manager is all over the news again. I wanted to talk about this because this was, I think, 2 months ago in May when we first reported on an attack, essentially where someone was able to take over the for each package, I believe is what it was, for each, which was downloaded and used by millions of users because that package had an expired domain associated with the account. And so I think we talked about, I believe, Eric, I remember you mentioning on that show the risk of typo squatting, right? And putting in repositories that are, similar to other valid repositories and embedding those with malicious code. And I think that's exactly what we've seen here with Icon Burst.
Yeah, good job, Eric. Way to let them know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all my fault. No, yeah, I mean, the reality is, and I'm glad it's getting a lot of news attention, right? Sorry, I just got a message saying my internet was unstable. Hopefully I'm not lagging out now. But I'm glad it's getting a lot of news. The reality is that we've been doing this practice, developers have been doing this practice for many years now of just taking dependencies and just trusting them. You look at some Stack Overflow thing and it's like, oh, you want to do this, you can grab this dependency and it'll do it, right? And we've gotten really heavily into doing that and just relying on that a lot. And even now we're so ingrained in it that if we don't just use someone else's recommendation or something else, we still go search through the packages, go search through NPM or go search through PyPi or whatever, and like look for something that's going to do it, that's advertising to do what we need, right? And so yeah, we take a huge risk by doing that, just including these things without looking at them. Specifically in this case, the icon burst one we're talking about is an NPM one that was typo squatting. And typo squatting meaning that you go to include, you're setting up your environment, you do an NPM to install the dependencies you're going to need, and you make a typo. You just slightly mess up the thing. Well, someone has created that package with maybe the same code with added malicious stuff, or maybe it's just straight up malicious. I mean, whatever it might be, but they're adding in malicious code to these things that have just slightly different names, and hoping that people will typo them when they're setting up their environments and their applications, and it works, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, that's an effective attack, like typo squatting in general, right? That's very effective in social engineering. That's something that I'm sure we use on the offensive side. That's something on the defensive side too. We tell folks about, we discover those typo squatting domains, so folks know how to defend against those. I mean, I used to work in a past life where we would enumerate all variations of our domains and buy all of those domains, right? I mean, the risk reward on that, like, it's a small investment to be able to defend your domains effectively, but it just was common logic. This is going to step into other pieces of our world, and I think we're seeing it here. And I think that this is just the beginning, right? Because Eric told the world about it 2 months, so we will continue to blame him. But now that there's publicity, there's going to be lots of copycats. People know that this is effective. And so I think this is something that's going to be here to stay. And I know we talked a little bit about vetting our source code and things like that a couple months ago as well, but I think it's going to get it's going to force a paradigm shift here, some sort of a change where we're going to have to focus more on these packages and really investigating those packages before we embed them into our programs.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, kind of like Eric was saying too, you just go and you install it, right? I mean, I don't do a ton of coding, but it's always made me really nervous, even with like PowerShell, right? If you're installing a PowerShell module, there are all those you can pull down. And a lot of times I'll type those in and go back and reread them a couple times and check whatever article I'm working off of or whatever, just to make sure I got the same name right, because it's always been a possibility. And a lot of them are, when you're installing these, let's say you want one that's called like, I'm going to call it math utils, because like MATLAB and things like that. But maybe you grab one that's maths utils with an S or something, and it's really easy to do. And oftentimes they're not named in a way that is overly straightforward. Maybe they were using an old version name or something like that. And yeah, it makes me nervous every time I download one, right? I mean, and now this is just kind of proof of that.
Yeah, I'd say at least with like scripts that we download, whether it be PowerShell or as a pen tester, we have to use all kinds of other people's scripts and stuff, right? With those, generally sometimes they could be thousands of lines of code, but I mean, generally they're smaller. There's something that we always go through. We can read line by line and make sure we know what it's doing, right? And check into that. But when you're talking about one of these dependencies, that's just not happening. You know what I mean? Especially when you start all of a sudden having, even if you just have 5 dependencies in your environment, but they each have 5 dependencies, and then those each maybe have a dependency or 2, you start getting to this place where it's quickly like nothing I could possibly go through myself and look at, right? For each application we made, you'd have to hire a team of people to go through it or something like that, or contractors to go through it. And so it's a real problem. And we've talked about it plenty of times. We don't have to cover too much on that part of it, but my hope is that with how much we're seeing it get talked about now, that some really good tools, and I think some good tools already exist, but we continue to develop really good tools to automatically go through some of these things and scan these things and find really good things and let us know about these issues. And there's great researchers doing this work too, obviously finding this stuff and reporting on it, so that's cool too.
You mentioned the dependencies there too. If I'm not mistaken, this one, that's exactly how this was, right? It was a pretty well-known package, but then they hit one of the dependencies for that. Was that not kind of how this one went?
I think this one's kind of more along the lines of, because with typo squatting, generally
Yeah, that makes sense.
you're
No,
relying
I
on
see.
whoever the developer is creating their environment to type it wrong. I mean, it could also work as a dependency of another thing, but then whoever's developing that parent level dependency, rather, the parent level library is going to have to make the typo. But if they, I mean, that's has much more implication if they did, right? If someone's creating a library for you to use and they typo and get, you know, a typo squatted package, then the actual trusted one becomes an issue too, right? So, and that can happen for sure.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll see more of that.
Yeah, and talk about like the detection again here, and you know, it is going to be a challenge just because of the things you said, Eric, to be able to identify and detect these malicious packages. These that were discovered as part of Icon bursts were published in December. So just think about that. It took 7 months to discover that these malicious packages had been uploaded. The other thing I know is there's not really a vetting process to be able to get your packages on NPM or PyPi for that. And we're going to talk about PyPi a little bit later. And so then we get into this real weird area, like where does that burden of responsibility lie? Because, you know, NPM Incorporated is a for-profit business from my understanding, and they're hosting these repositories and freely distributing this code. So where do we think that burden of responsibility should lie? I mean, should NPM increase their vetting process to make sure that they have a code review for any hosted package, or does that burden still lie upon the developers that are using these packages?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing. I mean, obviously we're talking about services that are essentially free, right? And so then having a staff that goes through and vets everything, it becomes very much, you know, much more difficult to put it on the actual library maintainers or the database maintainers. I don't know the answer to that one, you know.
Yeah, and maybe that's a shift we'll see. I mean, maybe you're right, like it's going to take money to do that, but from a developer's perspective as well, if there was an NPM that we paid a monthly subscription for versus the open source version that could fund those things, was that something that, you know, you would want? Probably.
Right.
Yeah. And mentioning the PyPi one, that was actually, I was getting a note confused from that one about the dependency thing there, but I know we'll get to dig into that in a minute. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I feel like if you're kind of using sort of open source stuff to make a profit, it is sort of on you a little bit. But again, it's still a free repo. It's tough to kind of get in there with that. But it's sort of the thing, right? If you're charging somebody for open source stuff, then your whole thing is you're charging for support essentially,
Right.
but not really the case in this one. It's a little bit of an odd one.
I mean, one thing I will say is that, you know, we always preach on every other front, you know, security in depth, having multiple layers of defense, right? It'd be great if the, you know, NPM and PyPi and whoever, all the other places, you know, like if they are doing something about it, but still also falls on the developer, I think too. I think we need to have multiple layers of checks and balances.
I agree.
You know?
I agree with that. In this case, I know just a couple more stats for folks. A couple of the packages that are specifically called out here is Umbrella.ja and Ionic.io that were targeted. One of the packages, I'm not sure which one, but had over 17,000 downloads since it was uploaded. So, you know, it's been socialized fairly well at this point. It's in a lot of programs. We could safely assume the total of discovered packages was 27,000 downloads. NPM has been notified of this as of last Friday, I believe. I didn't check before our show today, but it seems like they hadn't taken those all offline yet either. So,
yeah, I mean, at least at the time of the article, which was only 4 days after they were notified, they were still mostly online. And yeah, I did a little bit of looking into some of the other stuff, articles about it, and it looked like it was 38 different packages that were found to be part of this campaign, just this thing, this type of squatting for the specific icon burst stuff. And it was, my math, I did the add up of all of them, and it was actually over 30,000. So 30,225.
Oh, wow.
Is what they had detected, at least at the time of the article. That's downloads, right? So 30,000 times that someone typoed something and downloaded that library at some point, whether they're still using it or not, don't know, but
right.
Yeah. So, you know, what makes me nervous here, too, is who is using it. You know, like you were mentioning earlier too, was this functional? Because if it's functional, it's probably not going to get caught, right? It's still going to be doing whatever it was doing. So now, you know, downstream, right? If this was a if this was an Apache or somebody that grabbed this, probably not in this case, but how much software down the line is impacted here, and how many people have pulled that software, and it could get really big really fast.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're gonna have to be a little while to see what the long-term damage is from this. And two, like, it's going to keep growing. Sorry, yeah, go ahead. It's going to keep growing though. This isn't going away.
I don't think we touched on it, but this specific campaign, this specific icon burst thing was targeted to steal data from embedded forms on pages once they had been used. So try to pull and get any data off of any forms and submit it to the attacker. So
yeah, so continuing on to another news story that hit affecting NPM was not quite as impactful, but I think there was a couple of interesting pieces. Was there were a large number, 1,300 rogue modules discovered on NPM that were published from 1,000 different unique accounts. This was part of a crypto mining scheme. The interesting piece to me on this, it was another flaw essentially in NPM, where they were able to quickly deploy 1,300 modules using 1,000 accounts, and essentially they use techniques, so they were able to bypass the NPM one-time passcode that's required to authenticate and set up a new account to be able to contribute a package. And so attackers have essentially found a way to automate that and quickly deploy a large volume of packages, right? And so I think this, even though it's a completely different story that's focusing on crypto miners, it's still relevant here when we think about the future and how, okay, if typo squatting is going to be a thing, it's easy to take a package and enumerate all those variations of that package, right? And now we have a way to bulk upload our malicious squatted packages. So I think that's something else that NPM is going to have to fix too, but also from a defender side, like, no normal find evil, right? So if you see those anomalies where, holy crap, there was 1,300, or let's just say 100 packages that were all very similarly named, published within 5 minutes of each other, hopefully that would be easily detectable for NPM. They didn't detect it this time. It's all over the news. So maybe they use that as a learning opportunity moving forward.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree that I think the important kind of takeaway on this one is that more the automated side of deploying it. It's like the actual, the attack, if you want to even call it an attack, the modules that they set up don't seem to auto run on their own. They seem to have to require some other kind of thing to kick them off. It's more just functionality built in to do crypto mining, but doesn't automatically do it. So as far as like the detection on this from researchers, at least, kind of, I think, detected it while someone was kind of testing things out and planning some stuff and seeing how it would go. But the reality is still that there was a automation to do that needs to get fixed.
Yeah. I know they're a big repository, right? But I mean, surely 1,000 over a really short period of time should trip some alarms somewhere. Say, hey, what's going on here? Something strange is happening.
Yeah, even looking at throttling, like the source IP that those are being submitted from, because I don't know in this case if they were using a dispersed network to do this or if it was one IP, but there are definitely some mechanisms they could use to identify this type of behavior and at least pause or slow down to say, is this legitimate or not?
Yeah, I will say that with the amount of cloud hosting that exists out there now and different cloud firewall services and proxy services and all kinds of other things, there's definitely ways to configure and easily set up things to basically route through new IPs for every request. I mean, there's at least, I know, projects around it for AWS like FireProx, which will literally let you set up a link to something that will make it so that every time you request that link, it sends it through a new IP through AWS's servers. Generally, if you set it up in a zone, it's like 250 or so IPs. It's like 275 or something like that, that'll kind of randomly go through at every single request it rotates. But if you set it up in multiple regions, which we have for our stuff when we do password spraying against things with blocks like that, so we'll have like 5 different regions and we'll put them in a list. So we cycle through the list of five regions that all have a couple hundred IPs each, and so it ends up giving us like 1,000 IPs we can come from at any given time.
Right.
So it's pretty easy to do that these days. It does make it very difficult to check some of these things, but I guess the question really for NPM is, I mean, and I don't know the answer to it, is like, what does their baseline look like? Like, is
Yeah.
1,000 new accounts being spun up and making things, is that much of a blip on their baseline or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know when I was researching this one for Cuteboy, which is hilarious, that there was a previous attack that was called Red Lily. That was very similar. I think this came out almost a year ago, sometime in 2021. Same thing. They were using a tool called InteractSH. InteractSH was used essentially like from what they were standing up bogus email accounts, running InteractSH so they could pull that OTP automatically, input that OTP back into the field required for NPM. In this case, though, for Cuteboy, I'm going to try to say how many times I can say Cuteboy today. They were using a disposable mail client called mail.tm, and mail.tm, I guess you can just script via API, pull the data in there. So they were able to script all this, get the OTP sent to mail.tm, use the API to pull it back out, input it, verify the account, and then boom, upload the packages.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's one of the things I kind of noticed. It's not, this one wasn't like a true MFA bypass, and like that article initially kind of alluded to like, oh, they were able to bypass MFA. Not so much. It was just they were able to, automatically read that and re-input it. So pretty slick, but yeah, just not a true MFA bypass like it was saying.
Right. And then maybe continue on the path here, not NPM, but PyPi. So PyPi was also in the news, and we haven't talked about PyPi on here before, but package index for Python, from my perspective, it's kind of like the NPM for Python, right? And so kind of the same challenges we've talked about here with NPM. It's not really a vetting process for new packages. It's open source, user contribution, all that good stuff. But Sonotop was scanning the PyPi repository, and they found, surprise, surprise, malicious packages in PyPi as well. There's 5 specifically called out in the article that we'll share with you guys. The one thing I will say about PyPi that appears to be different than NPM is it seems like these are reported and they were immediately taken offline, all except for one, which required further validation. And I think it's offline now. But these malicious packages had similar malicious code that were essentially used for data exfiltration to harvest credentials, network information, environmental variables, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. One thing I can say about the one that was not taken offline, the reason it probably wasn't taken offline is it didn't have malicious code in it.
Okay.
So there was one. So like these are the Pygrata and the Pygrata utils. The Pygrata utils had the malicious code, and Pygrata just had a dependency of Pygrata utils. So if someone included or used the dependency of Pygrata, then it would bring in Pygrata utils, which had the malicious stuff. But Pygrata itself didn't, and so that was why that one didn't get taken off, because they didn't find malicious code in it. But essentially, by taking off the utils, made that one non-malicious too, right? So it was
makes sense.
Not a big deal.
And this one was funny too, right? Because the data was been exfilled to an unsecured server available online. The researcher that discovered this was able to access the server, so he could see a large volume of the victims. I don't know if you guys caught this. I think the victims were notified, but then he reached out to the domain owners as well and said, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? So he kind of showed his hands. I'm not sure that I would have done the same thing there, but he did. And then guess what? No response from our attackers.
Well, no response, and they took the site down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which means they spun it up somewhere else, and they're doing it again somewhere else. They're like, oh, we're caught. I generally would not let the attacker know that they're caught. But to each their own. It does help validate that it was probably definitely planned and malicious. The article kind of takes that route on it, where it's like, we're not going to say for sure that was the intention. Maybe this was something real. Yeah, but I think we know that it is malicious.
It's harvesting AWS creds and your network information. Come on, man.
Right.
Totally legitimate. No big deal there.
Yeah.
I do think people would be surprised. Sorry, Eric.
No, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I do think people would be surprised how often that happens on an attacker server, right? I mean, we've certainly stumbled on them as well with unsecured, no password required, just, hey, here's all of the data and all of our victims and have at it kind of thing. It happens more than you would think. Guys just standing things up, hitting things quickly and just not thinking to secure themselves. But it's, it's a nice find when it happens, because you do at least have a victim list, and you can let some people know that they've been hit, even if they didn't know already. So it's tricky waters, but I mean, it's a nice find.
It is, yeah, and we never notify the attacker.
No,
No.
But we do, just for all our listeners, like if we ever find that stash of data, we very, very diligently work to try to notify everyone who's been affected, because I mean, there are sometimes we can see too that the attackers are still active on those networks, meaning there's a good chance they don't know that they've been affected, and so we do our best to reach out to folks, and sometimes those conversations are a little interesting. I'll say, who are you and why are you calling me and how do you know this?
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. I'm Batman. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much money are you trying to get out of me, and why do you want it?
Yeah,
we're not trying to get anything out of you. We're just trying to let you know something.
Yeah.
And I get it. I would think the same thing, but it's tough though, because we're just like, hey, we're really trying to help here.
Yeah.
And
no money, no strings attached.
Yeah, most people don't take to it very kindly, honestly. I mean, we've only gotten a few really positive responses from that, and that's what it is. I mean, we try to do our best, but not everyone wants to hear it.
Yeah, someone commented, "Trust me, I'm from the internet."
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, I'm some random guy from the internet. It's like, I get it 100%. I would not trust me either if I was calling you.
I will say on this one too, on the PyPi related ones, that at least this article is about, it's not typo squatting in this case. It's actually just publishing libraries or dependencies that say they do something, and maybe even do that, but also have malicious stuff in them. And so when people are just searching for a module to, searching the library for modules that'll do what they need, they come across these and they go, oh, that looks like what I need. Let me try that. And so they get them that way too. So it's not just typo squatting.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the way too. I believe we'll see more of that as well. I mean,
yeah, this kind of bugs me, man, because I mean, you think about it, it's like we've all suspected that there could be problems with open source and things like that, but we've all just it's worked out for years, right? I mean, things have been pretty clean. Things have been mostly okay. You might hear the occasional one-off thing, but now it's like all at once. It's like it's everything. It's anything that's open source. We've got to really question it and be worried about it, and it just kind of sucks to lose that as a trustworthy resource.
I think the supply chain attacks of last year that really made headlines changed everything for us, because we saw how effective those attacks were, and then we said, all right, attackers said, let's approach this from a different avenue, and how can we mimic that, from a much larger scale? And I think that's how we got here.
Yeah,
I think my theory on it is that always has been, and that we're just looking into it more now.
Yeah,
could be.
I don't think. I mean, there's probably definitely an increase in how many people are doing, a malicious injection of code into supply chain, dependencies and things like that. I think there's probably an increase because it has made news in other ways, so people are more aware of it as an option. But I think it's probably always been a thing, or at least it's been a thing for a much longer time, and that also because of the news, researchers are putting a lot more time into it. There's a lot of development teams who are asking more questions about it, who want more products for it. They want more answers for it. I mean, I get asked far more questions about it from development teams than I did 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. I get asked way more now about it. And I think so the combination of the two, but I think sometimes it's like, yeah, it's been there. We're just finally looking. So
yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's likely always been there, like you said, but I do think that the frequency has increased and will continue to increase. Everybody's a copycat. We see that in everything. And so, that works. I'm going to go do it. All right, cool. So be cautious of all your packages from open source repos.
Yeah, one thing I will say just too, as far as from a detection response side of things, hopefully your vendors are reviewing their thing, their code and everything as a result of all this. So if you do get a notification that you were impacted, don't just leave it at the notification. Ask some questions, find out what was it doing, right? Was it exfilling data? Was it part of a command and control framework? Is there a possibility for other malware? Just really get a good feel for what was going on there, so that way you know how to threat hunt your own environment, based on what you hear from them. That is going to be like pulling teeth, though. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. People are not going to want to give those details out, but just fight and claw. And if you have any doubts about it, then, reach out to folks, do some threat hunting, do whatever you need to do there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's opportunities for developers that may be listening as well to think about how, um, that testing process goes for new development or upgrades, or maybe you're introducing new packages or different versions of packages into your environment. And typically we think about like these staging environments as heavy code testing, right? Functionality testing. We are seeing people focus more on security as part of that development lifecycle now, which is fantastic. But I think there is the opportunity here to just do network sniffing on those applications as well, right? Because there's a common denominator here. And what we've seen in the supply chain attacks last year, what we're seeing here is that typically data has been exfiltrated, right? So if that data is being exfiltrated, there's going to be a domain or there's going to be an IP that application is now communicating with that's not logical for the application. And so really having the skill set, the ability to say, all right, let's stage this, let's fully vet it and test it. And part of that vetting and testing program process should be look at the network. I mean, understand, run some PCAPs on that box and see who it's talking to, what it's talking to, and why it's talking to that particular node.
Definitely great advice. Devil's advocate side too is to also keep in mind though that just because you don't see something there, it doesn't mean it's not an issue, because with JavaScript type libraries, especially like NPM, could go client side or server side, right? So it could be that the browser is actually sending the data off and the server never sees it. So
right.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's another thing that popped up last couple of weeks. I think we had a post about this on Project Toffee. Microsoft Edge WebView2 being manipulated for cookie theft. Do you guys want to explain what WebView2 is?
No, because I don't know. Yeah, the only thing I honestly don't know much about it. I was kind of looking into this, and I don't know what the component actually does. The only thing I could come up with was maybe this is how. So, like, if you're logging into Teams or OneDrive or something like that, you get the little pop-up that looks like a browser, and maybe it's part of that system. But I honestly do not know what WebView2 is legitimately used for.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's like that, right? It's a way to put a browser into your application for whatever needs you might need. So if you did need to authenticate to something, you need to put a browser to be able to do that, like to load a page in to get that authentication or whatever. Then you would use something like this. This one to me is weird, or is interesting, because in my opinion, when I see something like this, I'm kind of like, isn't that intended functionality? If like, for instance, okay, when you go to log into, maybe not Teams per se, right, but everybody here I think is probably like logged into some application, or a lot of people have at least, where they log into some application, it does pop up kind of like a web view to log into. Well, how do you think it gets that data back to keep your session alive and to be able to interact with APIs and do that stuff? It has to be able to grab those tokens or cookies or whatever it is to be able to do that session. Generally it's tokens, but either way, it has the ability to interact with these things and see the inner workings of whatever the browser is doing inside of its own application. So, and I'm kind of skipping the description of what this is. Sorry, but the description of what this is basically saying that, hey, if people are using this component inside of applications and you go to log in through it, then what it can do is steal the cookies, steal information about that conversation back, and then report it somewhere else, right? What this would look like to a victim of the attack would be that they would run a program, they would get prompted to log in, they would log in, and it might do the full-on multi-factor task and everything. It's a proper login. There's nothing malicious. It's not a controlled site or anything that's asking you to log in. It's the real login. So you do the login, and then once it gets the session data back, whether that's a token or a cookie or whatever it might be, a combination of cookies, then the application can take that data and send it off to a server somewhere and report it back to the attacker, right? It's kind of a social engineering adjacent attack, if you will. And my kind of comment is, isn't this intended functionality almost,
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's kind of the thing. This was in the news, right? I think it was worthwhile for folks to know. It's another social engineering campaign. Like, it's going to be typically delivered in a fish. We may see just malicious junk software, right, that you're searching for, and you get a bad package again. It's going to be embedded in, but nothing new here. And even like the biggest thing, take away from me was like, okay, they're sure they can get your keystrokes. There are other ways to get keystrokes as well. Okay, they're trying to steal your cookies. There's other ways to steal your cookies as well. So not a lot new here. I guess it just made news because it was abusing that WebView2 tool or application. But outside of that, it's like same old song and dance, right?
Yeah, I think it's important when hearing things like this is to take a step back, look at it from different angles, and go like, what's the real takeaway from this? In my opinion, the takeaway from this is that people are doing this, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to want to train users on, if they see something like that, if they happen to download something and it pops up for prompts, they should be cautious. And they should always be cautious. That's good training in general, but especially if people, whenever we know that when things hit the news, people will emulate it, like we just said earlier, right? Emulation, copycats is huge. So whether this is the best way to go about things or not, the fact is that there's a good chance that people will do it now, more so, right? My opinion, if I was going to get you to download an executable, I would just do a proper keylogger of your whole computer, and I would go read all your cookie files, decrypt them, and send them back. I wouldn't make you log in. I'd go full malicious, right? Not social engineering side.
Right.
That said, if people are doing it, we'll see more people doing it. People need to be aware of it and prepared for it.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So can you steal my cookies, Eric?
Already done, bud.
Nice. We pay
got
my
the
bills.
best tasting cookies on the internet, man.
Love cookies.
I will say that the one really nice thing about the Hyphy article on this was the awesome picture of the girl stealing cookies that Corey put in there. Yeah, so enjoy that if you go view it.
Yeah, that's the main reason I put it in, because every time I open the feed, I'm like, oh man, I want some cookies. I want some cookies. My mouth waters a little bit. And a public service announcement, totally non-related to information security and talking of sweet treats. I've been trying a lot of new gummy treats lately. I don't know if you guys seen, there's like a gummy Starburst now. I like the gummy Lifesavers, but a new one to me, I don't know how new they are the gummy Nerds clusters. Have you guys seen these?
No.
All right, I got an empty package here because I polished these off today. But if you guys come across these, man, that's some good candy right there. And there's two flavors, red and blue, because that's the flavor, right? Red and blue.
Red and blue, right? Yeah.
I did actually just try some gummy Starburst for the first time like 2 days ago.
Those are good.
Yeah, I've had those. Those are really good
for my daughter, but then of course you have to tax any candy you get your kids,
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. Do enjoy good gummy candy though. I mean, gummy worms, man. Gummy worms are where it's at.
Yeah.
Can
It is kind of like Nerds rope. Somebody commented that, but it's just little bite-sized pieces of Nerds rope. They're already broke up for you. It's delicious. Sorry.
Oh, so it's actual it's not gummy Nerds. It's like gummy with Nerds on it.
Yeah, if you can see the photo, it's like, it's a little gummy cluster
so
with
gummy
Nerds
and
on
crunchy. All right.
Yeah, it's delicious. It's really funny. Like I was always like a chocolate guy for my sweets. Until the last year, for some reason, I just have got this insatiable craving for gummy treats, and now I want to try them all, find the best ones. And so I'm on a never-ending hunt to find that perfect gummy candy. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll be sure and let you guys know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
In response to Chris and Chad, I will say that frozen Skittles are amazing. Love frozen Skittles.
No, so that's freeze-dried Skittles.
Wait, what is a freeze-dried Skittle?
Wait,
I'm gonna need some more information.
That's just gonna be okay. It's gonna be like astronaut Skittles, man. That's gonna be different.
Right. Yeah.
I thought he just said, I read it as frozen at first. It's interesting.
Yes. Megan's right. Swedish fish are amazing, but only if you get them fresh, right? When they get a little old, they get a little too chewy. But you get a good fresh pack of Swedish fish. Those are really good.
Starburst on a stick over a campfire.
Yeah, this is just getting out of control.
This is
good.
No, it's not. It's beautiful.
Down. Yeah, I don't know that I agree with this at all.
I'm even getting side messages here. Gummy sweet tarts. Yeah, I like those too.
This is the topic. Who needs a security thing podcast? We just need to do this. Just talk about candy.
All right. So Coral shared freeze-dried. Sorry. If you guys want to talk security for a second, I really have to know what this is.
Yeah, Chris also shared them too, the Rocky Mountain ones. Fantastic stuff.
Oh, nice. All right, I'm on it. I'm gonna order that.
I will say
today. We'll have a review next time we meet.
I laughed a little because when you said I've got these new gummies, the little eyebrow raise that Pinky did. Where are you taking this?
I caught it right as I did it too, and I was like, "Oh no, get back down, get back down, get back down."
I want to save this chat because there's all kinds of good stuff. I see that some Japanese gummies is going to be delivered at Hacks and Hops. I want to remember all this so I don't forget when you show up and you didn't bring that candy. I can be like, bro, I was supposed to bring this candy.
My favorite gummies still right now, my favorite gummies are Haribo fruit salad.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, I
you
tried
have-
the fruit salad based on your recommendation just a couple weeks ago, and I really liked it.
Okay.
It was really good. Yeah.
delicious.
All
mean,
right.
I think that's what it's called.
Taking candies from strangers at Hacks and Hops. It'd be awesome.
Heck yeah. I'm an adult. I'll eat candy from strangers if I want.
Yeah. I mean, that van. Don't worry about the van. It's fine.
All right. So in other news, criminals are filling job application pools with deepfakes. FBI released a PIN warning. So attackers are using essentially stolen domestic PII to apply for remote work positions. In the PIN, the FBI notes that some of them, not all of them, some of them include very convincing videos and images of the deepfake. Some they said were awful and easily identifiable as deepfakes. But it turns out most of the positions are in the tech field. Big surprise, surprise. So attackers are trying to get a job using a deepfake of maybe us three right now. There's plenty of video and audio for us right now to do that, to go apply for jobs in other entities. So if you see a job application from me, it's not me. Okay. So
it might be me.
Might be Eric.
I want a job at wherever you are. Let me into your server room.
Yeah, definitely.
I read this article and I just got immediate FOMO because when I interview people, I don't have them turn their cameras on, and now I'm going to start doing it just so I can see if they're deep faking me. I want to be involved in one of these. I want to see it.
I think. I mean, would you probably hire the person who deep faked you? I mean,
yeah,
it was initiative, right? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
So
like if I got a video of like of Diddy, like, you know, trying to apply at our company, I'd be like, you're in. I don't even care.
Yeah. That new Kendrick Lamar video is pretty good, where he's like Kobe and OJ and all these folks, you know. So if Kendrick Lamar shows up as an applicant, I don't know, might be fake.
For several reasons, but yeah.
His career's going really well.
This worries me on so many levels too, and like I don't know about the validity of this. I probably saw it on Reddit or something, but I mean, did you guys see where the Google AI apparently hired a lawyer or something?
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have concerns if they're, you know, seeking legal assistance and successfully obtaining it now. So, yeah, I have some worries.
Wait, can we get AI hiring as well? Can I not do as many interviews?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the Google AI is now sentient, right? And
yeah,
so that's a key part of that, right? So it's sentient, and then he hired a lawyer. So, or
I think
he or
it's
she,
more sentient than I am at this point. So that's good.
Yeah.
Notice that Cliff in here said that they were busted because they sneezed and the video did not. Yeah, there was like a sneeze in the audio or a sneeze on the video, but not, you know, one or the other was missing.
Or it was just desynced enough because it couldn't catch up with the stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have worked previous positions before where I've hired offshore employees, and I know there was a big scam going on there for a while where they would hire someone to interview, and then they go through the full process, and they hire them, they start, and it's not the person you hired. I've seen that happen before. This is just kind of the next stage of that from my perspective.
I have a thought question in general. Like, how much do you think this matters compared to, like, I'm not going to recognize the person's face. I'm not going to know them from, I mean, unless like they're literally Kendrick Lamar trying to apply to our job, right? But you know what I mean? Like, how much of an advantage do you think this gives someone who's trying to get into a company over just kind of catfishing in general, right? Just like putting up a profile with their actual own photo and applying, other than the fact that obviously if they did this to 25 different names on LinkedIn and something had all the same photo, it would be more detectable, right? But the average person looking into the applicant for their company is not looking to see if anyone else has the same photo on LinkedIn or something, right? So I mean, how much of an advantage do you think deep faking this stage of an interview process to try to get into a company really gains someone?
I think if it's the right candidate that you're mimicking, maybe you find someone with, you know, leaked PI, they already have a history in tech, working with domestic companies in the field and the position you want. Maybe it's a little easier to mimic that person, right? And even at that point too, you think about if they, you know, the interviewer requires references, the deep faker at this point, okay, I know the history. They got a good chance at guessing references just based upon those job titles, roles, and years they were in there. So I think there is an advantage for sure. But I do think your point's valid. I mean, there are other ways to do this.
Yeah, if you're targeting someone who's well known in an industry, for sure. You know, yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, just be aware. I mean, that's the thing. We want to share this. I think we're going to continue to see this more and more. It's been a thing for a while, especially with offshore, domestic hiring offshore candidates. And so now we're seeing this pivot a little bit where they're trying to mimic actual domestic candidates as well. I do see a question in here that asks about the whole sentient thing with the Google AI. Is that legit? Man, it's hard to tell. I don't know. But
I mean, like,
we could have a
yeah.
There's so I'm actually, I don't want to give the name of this because like it's almost a little bit terrifying when you go down this path a little bit, but there are some really interesting thought experiments out there about AI and its existence or not existence and how sentient it is and that kind of thing. If you go down those paths and you want to look those up, they're not entirely difficult to find, but there's some really interesting stuff out there about how that could be playing out and we don't realize it and that kind of thing. So yeah,
again, I think this will be a Hackle Box After Dark special. We could dig into that too.
I just don't want to be responsible for anybody losing sleep because if you really dig into some of that, it can kind of start screwing with your brain a little bit.
Switch your brain up a little bit. Yeah, if you're susceptible to that kind of thing.
Yeah. I did see that somebody was going to offer us, I think it was Michael was going to offer us gummies to log into laptops. If you bring us candy, we'll probably log into laptops. So just
yeah, for sure.
No, bring me any login prompt you want and candy, and I will log into it.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's going to use your password, but he's going to log in.
Yeah. I hope you wanted me to log in as you, but no.
Someone mentioned the Turing test as well. Which there's a great PS4 game. I think it's called the Turing Test. You guys seen that? It's pretty fun. If you like puzzles, anybody likes puzzle games, it's a fun puzzle game. And it turns out I'm human. So, all right. One more thing. This has been a lot of fun. We'll move on. Get our weekend started. CISA alert for North Korean APT targeting healthcare sector. Apparently this has been going on a while. CISA decided to put out an alert now. So super cool. Thanks for doing that, CISA. Mainly want to give this as a PSA for all the folks in healthcare to be aware that alert is out there. It appears there's a North Korean state-sponsored persistent threat group that is targeting domestic healthcare, public health sector with Maui ransomware. I do got to knock CISA a little bit here. Probably a couple things. I know Pink's got something. If you go look at this, they have like their full IOCs and all that. The IOCs are junk. They're garbage. It's literally a hash for Maui.exe. Their recommendations are to train your users on how to recognize phishing attempts, enable and enforce MFA, and install and regularly update AV on all your hosts. We agree with those things for sure, but that's nothing new as part of their alert. I wish they would have gave us some more substance in this alert so that we could have more well-defined TTPs, right? So folks would know what to look for in this situation. They didn't really share any of that, which was very disappointing. PSA though, just be aware. And I think, Pink, I know you want to mention the Medusa Locker thing because.
Yeah. I mean, definitely like anytime healthcare is being targeted, right? Just be aware and know that that's a thing that's happening. One quick thing on the Maui one is that it is like most new stuff. It does require manual execution, right? So this isn't just you get it and it runs. It's going to require an active attacker on your in your environment, but that's the case with all of them now. So not anything too new there. There's some other things about how it functions with ransomware as a service, all of which are completely unimportant, just from the perspective of protecting against the attack, really. But yeah, so this comes on the heels of another one that came out last week or the week before around Medusa Locker ransomware from CISA again. And I appreciate what they do. They've actually been great over the last couple of years, really getting stuff out with good information and that kind of thing. But again, Medusa Locker came out about 2 years ago, maybe more. The last case we worked on it was probably 2 years ago. Not saying that we're working everything, but we've not seen it in 2 years. And then to just kind of back that up, we go and we look at the CISA alert, and all the IOCs, all the indicators of compromise, the TTP stuff that it had in there was 2 years old. mean, these were like 2-year-old file hashes. That's completely useless. It's less than useful, or less than useless. I mean, so it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit of a pattern for them here, small sample size, but they seem to be just handing out some garbage, and I'm not very happy about that, because we want good IOCs. We want to have actionable stuff. And I do appreciate them reminding people, hey, don't have local admin. Don't be susceptible to phishes, things like that. But that's not useful in that type of an alert. It's just like, hey, there's a thing happening, and then that's it. That's all you're getting from it.
Right. And I'm with you, man. I'm not knocking CISA. I think they do a lot of great things.
Yeah.
It's just really kind of strange. The last week, one came out a week ago. The other one came out like yesterday, the day before, something like that. They just put out 2 alerts that really didn't make a lot of sense to us, really lacking significant content. And so maybe, just maybe, it's like they're a government entity. It was 4th of July. They were celebrating America real hard. And they're like, man, we got to put something out. And then they just put the intern like, hey, just tell them something. So they think we're not off for a week. So maybe they're just drinking brewskis and barbecuing still. Next week, CISA is going to be back on the horse, and they're going to give us some good information.
It's a pretty decent assessment, actually. I'd say you're probably not far off there.
Yeah.
I sure hope so, though, because I mean, I got asked about this on a call. Like, hey, have you heard anything about Medusa Locker? And I had a moment of like,
that thing from 2 years ago.
I remember it. We worked some cases with it. It was fairly rowdy 2 years ago. But what's going on? And it was like, hey, there's this CISA alert out about it. And I started looking, and I think you looked at it, Oscar, maybe, but a couple of guys looked at it, and everything I could find about it just tied back to that CISA alert. It was just a big circle.
Yep.
And I couldn't find anything or anybody talking about it being legitimate and an actual threat at the moment or anything like that. So
yeah, the only thing I think new that we saw was like there's another ransom variant that uses some pieces of Medusa Locker. There were code similarities there. But outside of that, it was nothing.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I guess sort of lesson here is just those are good, and definitely pay attention to all of them, but don't hit the panic button immediately when you see one. Just look through it, try to view it, review it, do a little bit of digging, but definitely take them seriously. That's my thing, is I don't want them to lose credibility, because they've been very good over the last few years. I want that credibility to be maintained for them.
Yeah, still tune into those things. Like that known exploited vulnerabilities list is fantastic. Most of their alerts are really relevant, really good. I think they're just, I don't know, man, partying too hard for America's birthday.
That's, it happens.
Yeah, it does. All right, I think that's it. If you guys have gummy suggestions, be sure and email us those suggestions as well. I think, the other thing I needed to do before we go is plug Hacks and Hops. So we have Hacks and Hops coming up in October on the 6th. It's going to be at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. There's a website for it, hacksandhops.com, where tickets are for sale. I checked yesterday, the day before. I think tier 1 and tier 2 have sold out, but tier 3 should be firing up soon. We're all going to be there. Eric's going to be there. Pink's going to be there. I'm going to be there. I think we're all doing talks or panels or something that day. We got a lot of other good stuff lined up. So I'm looking forward to getting to see everybody in person again. It's been a long time since we got to do one of these, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think too, and stop me if this is not a good idea, but since we are doing this live at DEF CON next month, I can foresee that topics may not be as easy to come by, just given we're going to be very busy and that kind of thing. So I don't know if you guys get questions or anything that just itch in your brain you want to talk about. Throw it out there. We'll try to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just call out here. I'm not going to read this comment, but Bryce, I see your comment. Maybe shoot me an email, man, and let's chat. We'd be happy to help you out. All right, guys. It's been great. Hope everyone enjoyed this. Have a safe, fun weekend, and we'll talk to everybody again in a month from DEF CON. See you.
Yep.